Put a finger down if you are currently on a working holiday visa in Australia and you've recently realized that actually, I don't want to leave this amazing country and I kind of want to stay here for as long as possible. If this is you, if you are currently in Australia or you're looking to come to Australia and you want to stay for as long as possible, I'm going to share with you all the top visas, I say all the top visas, all the possible visa options you could follow to extend your working holiday visa past the first year. If you're new around here, hi, my name is Dain. I'm a Brit living in Australia. I've spent 2 years exploring Australia and sharing my top tips on how you can move here on a working holiday visa. There are 2 different types of working holiday visas. Number 1 is the 417, which is what most people are on. It really depends which country you come from as to which visa you apply for. And then there is the 462. Now, the only difference that I'm aware of in these 2 visas is that the 462, you need to have some sort of educational requirements. Most likely, if you're watching this video, you're currently on a working holiday visa, or you're planning to come out here and want to maximize your time in Australia. I've done so much research and I've paid several immigration agents to help me on this, because if you're like me in this cohort of people where you actually have to leave Australia because you thought you had 3 years here. So I'm from Britain. This won't apply to you if you're not from Britain. But the only good thing to come out of Brexit was Australia and Britain, they made an agreement and they said, hey, you guys can go live in England for 3 years up to the age of 35, and Brits can go live in Australia up to the age of 35 without any specified rules, without you needing to do 88 days. So I came here a few years ago thinking, oh, I've got 3 years. But then last year, they actually agreed on the date, which was the 1st of July of 2024. My visa runs out the end of March 2024. So I have this annoying 3-month gap. And that is where I've done so much research on how I can extend my visa. I will say I'm not an immigration agent. I have recently paid for 2 separate consultations with immigration agents. If you are looking for an immigration agent, which if you are looking to extend your visa, I highly recommend paying to speak to someone who knows their stuff. I will leave down below the guy that I use. He doesn't know I'm shouting him out, but I would highly recommend him. His name's Peter. I don't even know if I can shout him out, but I'll leave his details down below. He's from Titan Migration in New South Wales. But yeah, he was so helpful, and he even showed me options that I didn't even know were available to me. Before we get into the video, I do just want to let you know that if you go down below to my description, you can sign up for my email list and you get a free mini guide, which will help you prepare to move to Australia. I also released an ebook, which is currently 25% off, and that has over 100 pages of juicy insights to help you make the most out of your working holiday visa. I do go into this topic in the ebook as well, and there's loads more resources in there. I also have so many other videos. And if you would like a one-on-one 45-minute session with me, I recently set this up because I get so many messages from you guys, and you even said can I have a meeting with you just to talk through everything? I know moving to Australia is daunting, it's scary. So I'll leave some information about that down below. I can help you plan your trip to Australia, can suggest certain flights, and just answer all your questions. Now that's out of the way with, let's get into which visas you can use to extend your working holiday visa. Option 1, your 2nd and 3rd year working holiday visa. This is the most common and popular way to extend your time in Australia. So in order to get your 2nd year working holiday visa, you need to do 88 days of specified work during your 1st year. And the way that you evidence this is through pay slip. So you need to do the equivalent of 88 days of specified work. This could be tourism and hospitality in North Australia. This could be flood recovery work. There's other things on this, so make sure you look online as to which postcode you're planning to live and work in and see if your job actually fits the description to make you eligible to get your 2nd year. And then if you want to do a 3rd year, you can do 6 months specified work in order to get your 3rd year. So this is the most common way that I did COVID relief work in my 1st year, and that enabled me to get a 2nd year working holiday visa. If you are from the UK, from the 1st of July 2024, you do not need to worry about the specified work. You can just get 3 consecutive years without having to prove any farm work. You can just, yeah. I also feel incredibly grateful and lucky that I'm British and that this opportunity is available to me. But at the same time, this is probably only a good thing that came out of Brexit. So I'm just going to leave that there. Now, option 2 is a student visa. So if you are looking to study in Australia, or you would like an alternative option to buy yourself some more time in Australia, you can look into student visas. One thing that you didn't know is there is a huge market of affordable student courses, meaning they actually do cheap courses so that you can get a student visa and extend your time in Australia. This is something that I seriously looked into to bridge the gap from March to July. Because it was so expensive, I decided not to go through with it. And then I thought I actually don't want to study. Now, I'm sharing this information with you so you can learn, but I definitely think go and do your own research as well. So I'm just going to break down the costs because I was actually very shocked at how expensive this would be. So if you get a student visa, this can last up to 5 years or the total duration of your study period. So I literally typed in affordable student courses in Sydney because I live near Sydney, and there are so many options. They have like project management courses, English courses, and things like business management. I have no interest in doing any of those things. This was the breakdown of the costs. Bearing in mind, this would be the cost for just 3 months. So firstly, the cheapest course available at the moment is $1,200, and you do have to do the coursework and you actually have to go into the college or university at least once a week. So the cost for 2.5 months of study is $1,200. For me, that's quite a lot. And then you need to purchase student insurance. This is not negotiable. You have to buy this insurance. This was $650. And then there's a $250 application fee. The visa itself is $710 for the student visa fee. And because you're already onshore, this doesn't apply if you're offshore, but if you're already onshore, the government slap on an extra $700 onshore visa application fee. This doesn't apply to all visas, but if you're on a temporary visa and you apply for another visa in Australia whilst already on a temporary visa onshore in Australia, you have to pay an extra $700. Don't know why, you just do. This brings the total to $3,510 for 3 months. The reason I didn't go through with this was firstly, this was very expensive for the sake of staying here an extra 3 months. And the big visa that I want to get that I'll talk about in a second is nearly the same price as this. So I was like, that is not an option for me. And I would have to study once a week, which I don't want to study. And you can only work a maximum of 48 hours in a fortnight. So you can't even work full time. So you're paying this money, you've got less income because you're working less. It's definitely a good option for some people if you genuinely want to study or you're happy to pay this amount of money to just do a random course to stay in Australia, or you're looking to bridge the gap. The third option is an onshore tourist visa. You can apply for this onshore and this will allow you to stay in Australia as a tourist for up to 12 months. Now you can apply for your second and third year working holiday visa from an onshore tourist visa, but you can't apply for your first working holiday visa from a tourist visa. You'd have to leave the country. The cost of this visa is $475. However, you do again have to pay the extra $700 because you're already in Australia. If you did leave the country and then apply for this visa, you wouldn't have to pay the $700. But I'm not going to lie, it would probably cost you $700 to leave and return. So it's probably easier just to pay the $700. If you're on an onshore tourist visa, you are not allowed to work. You have to keep that in mind. Do you have enough savings to last you? The fourth visa is a skilled visa. So there are many skilled visas. I'm going to talk about a few different ones. To be eligible for a skilled visa, you have to be on the government occupational skills list. This really varies. Like if you're a baker, you are eligible for this visa. If you're a social worker like me, you are eligible for this visa. If you're a nurse, you're eligible for this visa. Or if you are some sort of manager, that is also on the list as well, because they're looking for managers in like hospitality, etc., etc. So the list does always change. So definitely check online, whatever year or date you are watching this video. So one of the options is an employer sponsored visa. So if you're on the skilled list, you can talk to your employer about any sponsorship opportunities. They may be able to sponsor you. Say you're a nurse and you want to remain in Australia, you could talk to your employer about being sponsored. If you are a manager in hospitality or tourism, maybe that's also an option as well. I'm going to talk about two other visas that I have heavily considered. The first one is the 189 visa. So that would be an independent skilled visa. If you're on the occupational skills list, you would be able to apply for a 189 visa. You would apply directly to the government. And the other one, this is the one that I'm really interested in, but I just didn't get my paperwork sorted out in time. It's the 190 state-sponsored skilled visa. For instance, if you're on the skilled list, say you're a nurse and you're living in New South Wales, you would have to firstly request a skills assessment from like the registered body. You can just Google like skills assessment, whatever your occupation is. Once you have that skills assessment, if it's positive, you can express interest to live in that state. And then if they say, yes, we invite you to live in, say, New South Wales, then you can apply for this skilled visa. Now, this does kind of get expensive and you do need a lot of paperwork to actually apply for this visa. So firstly, you need to get a skills assessment. So my social work skills assessment is going to cost me around $2,500 to $3,000. That is just for the skills assessment. And to give you a glimpse into what kind of documents you need, I've been a social worker since 2016. Now I have to go back to all my employers since 2016 and I need them to write me a letter, provide my job contracts and get all my pay slips. I also need to prove that I speak English. So I need to either take an English test or go to my secondary school, like when I was 12 years old, and say, please, can you write me a letter to prove that I speak English? Yes, that is just how ridiculous this is. They want so much information and once you supply them with all the documents, for my personal circumstances, it can take up to 18 weeks for them to process that paperwork. Once I have that paperwork, I can express interest in living in a state, whether that's Western Australia or New South Wales, wherever it is. And then they say, yes, we want you to live here. And then you apply for the visa. The visa cost is $4,640. So that takes the total to just over $7,000 for this visa. Do your own research, have a look if you have a profession in the home country that you're in and you would like to extend your visa in Australia. Doing a skilled visa is definitely a very good option because that one that I talked about, the 190 state-sponsored visa, that would give me residency in Australia. I can stay here forever, which is kind of what I want to do. I'm 99% sure that's what I want to do. I really love it here. Option number 5 is a partner visa. So if you are in a genuine relationship with an Australian citizen and you can prove this, you are eligible for a partner visa. In order to prove your relationship, generally they want to know that you've been living together for at least 1 year. You can do things like registering your relationship with the state. If you haven't been living together for a year, that also looks very good for like the application process. But you would need lots of documents to prove that you're in a relationship, such as shared financial documents, police checks from any countries that you've lived in, birth certificates, bank statements, rental statements, and every single picture you ever have with that person and witness statements. But this visa is going to require a substantial amount of evidence and it will set you back a little bit of money. So the actual visa itself is $8,850, but by the time you've paid for health checks, police checks, all these other checks, you're probably looking around $10,000. If you get an immigration agent to process this application for you, it's roughly going to cost around $4,000 to $5,000. So that then takes you up to $15,000. You can hire an immigration agent to do any of these visas for you. Obviously it will cost. You can definitely do them on your own. I would recommend, if you do the more serious visas that I'm talking about now, like the skilled visa, partner visa, if you don't have the money to pay them to do it, which, I don't think I will pay anyone to do my visa when I do my big visa, I would recommend, and I've heard from people, get them to check your documents. So that guy Peter I mentioned, he's $75 for like a 20-minute appointment. Totally worth it. Totally worth it. That's where I learned about all this information from. You can also pay them to check your application and your paperwork before you submit it to the government, which is such a good idea because they might say, actually, I would put in this document or whatever, because these visas are a lot of money, like 10 grand, $7,000. You don't want to be messing about here. So it's worth just paying someone to check it over. And finally, the other popular visa for working holiday visas is regional visas. There are many of these, and usually they are in regional towns. So when I say regional, it's, you know, there are areas of Australia where their population is really small, but they still need people to live and work in these areas. They could be in the middle of nowhere in sort of outback towns. The regional visas allow employers in these regional areas to sponsor employees to live and work in Australia. If you would like the experience of living in a regional area and you would be open to living this kind of lifestyle for a few years, this might be a really good option to get long-term residency in Australia. Now, I didn't look into this option too much, but I wanted to find out as much information as I could for you guys as possible. So yeah, those are 6 visas that you could potentially apply for to extend your stay in Australia. Once again, I am not an immigration agent, but I've done so much research into this topic. The option that I have picked is to leave because I don't want to pay for a student visa. I didn't get my skilled work stuff done in time. And I have a period of 3 months where I actually have to leave Australia. So I'm just going to leave and then come back and sort out this skilled visa. A few tips that I have for you if you are looking to remain in Australia long term. Firstly, if you are serious about living in Australia, just pay an immigration agent to go through your options, go through your paperwork and see what are the realistic and best options for you, because the amount of times I've called the immigration, like the Australian immigration, they do not give you any advice over the phone. I feel like they're very unhelpful and they will just tell you to go and consult with an immigration agent. So it's better to just, you know, go and speak to a professional. This is what they do in, day out. So you can read lots of stuff online, but you'll get more precise recommendations and answer by just speaking to an immigration agent. Plan ahead. You will likely know in the first few months of coming to this country if you want to stay here for the long term. And this is why I say plan ahead. Don't be like me and leave it too late to sort out one of your potential options that would have allowed me to stay here. It can take time to get your paperwork in order. I recently ordered a birth certificate from England. It took 6 weeks to reach me. Luckily, I'm not applying for any of these visas right now, but I do need the birth certificate to apply for the visas. And I need a bunch of other paperwork as well, so I need to get started on that. So get your ducks in a row, get yourself organized and sorted. Next tip is be upfront with potential employers. If you type into Google sponsorship opportunities, Australia jobs, there are so many employers that are willing to sponsor you to live and work in Australia. So be upfront. When you're looking for jobs, explore the option with your employer. Ask them, do you offer sponsorship? You know, I'm looking to make Australia my home. I want to stay here. Make them aware that you are keen to stay, because then they can sort out that stuff as early as possible. And you can also, if they say no, then you can say, okay, well, I'm going to look for a different job if you're genuinely serious about staying in Australia. I hope this video has been helpful for you in planning your move to Australia or extending your visa. I'm going to leave lots of resources down below, so make sure you check the description for the ebook, the mini guide, and if you want to have a consultation with me just to talk through your move to Australia, or just, you know, you've got questions. I understand moving to Australia is probably one of the scariest, confusing, exciting things you can do in your life. It's firstly, it's so far away from most other countries. If you're like me, I'm from Europe. It takes a full day to get to Australia. So I get it. I was nervous too. But rest assured, I hope you have an amazing time. And if you're in this situation like me, like if you're from England and you have to leave Australia because your visa's up, but the 3rd year is not quite ready. And for those of you who comment, because I know people are going to comment, I know that I could have done 6 months farm work, but I didn't want to because I knew this rule was coming into place, but they just didn't tell us when. So yeah, I've kind of shot myself in the foot there. So I know that I could have done the 6 months. I just didn't do it because I thought it's fine, I'll go back to England. And then I was like, oh, I don't want to go back to England. So yeah, good luck. Thanks for watching. Take care and peace out.